Welcome to our channel Money Minded Online, the podcast where we explore the best strategies, tools, and stories for making money online. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned hustler, or just curious about how to thrive in the digital economy, you're in the right place. Each week, we bring you actionable insights, inspiring interviews, and proven tactics to help you build wealth online. So sit back, take notes, and get ready to transform your future. Let's dive in.
All right, so have you heard this lately? Like all this buzz about Bitcoin and how just owning a tiny sliver of it could make you a millionaire.
Yeah, it's definitely been making the rounds.
It sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Sounds good.
We're talking about owning like 0.001 Bitcoin,
Okay.
which right now is about $30, give or take.
Right.
Could that tiny amount actually set you on the path to becoming a millionaire?
$1 million question.
Exactly. To unpack this whole thing, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin's crazy journey so far.
Right.
We'll check out what the experts are predicting and really break down, what actually gives Bitcoin its value.
Makes sense.
But before we go any further, let me just put this out there. We are not financial advisors.
Okay.
This is not financial advice.
Okay. Right.
This is all about arming you with the knowledge so you can make your own smart decisions.
I like it.
So let's start with the basics for anyone who might be new to this whole Bitcoin thing.
Sure.
What is it in a nutshell?
So Bitcoin is the world's first decentralized cryptocurrency.
Okay.
It was created back in 2009 by this mysterious figure,
Oh,
Satoshi Nakamoto.
I've heard that name.
And to this day, nobody actually knows who Satoshi Nakamoto really is.
It's such a real-life mystery.
It really is.
So, okay, it's a cryptocurrency,
Right.
but what makes it so different from, say, the money we have in our bank accounts?
Well, the key difference is this. Bitcoin has a fixed supply.
Okay.
There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in existence, period.
So no printing more whenever you feel like it.
Exactly. No government, no central bank can just decide to print more Bitcoin.
So it's kind of like digital gold then, right?
It's a good way to think about it.
Limited supply, potential for growing demand.
Yeah,
Econ 1 taught me that's usually a recipe for something to go up in value.
exactly.
Okay, so back to this whole $1 million Bitcoin idea.
All right.
If Bitcoin were to hit $1 million per coin, that tiny 0.001 Bitcoin we talked about would suddenly be worth $1,000.
That's the math.
And I know we've seen some even bolder predictions out there.
Oh, yeah. Some analysts are saying Bitcoin could reach $10 million a coin,
10 million.
which would make that point zero. Zero. One Bitcoin worth $10,000.
Wow. Okay, I mean, those are some serious numbers.
They are.
But is this all just hype? Or is there something real behind these predictions?
Well, you got to remember, Bitcoin's price history is a wild ride.
I've heard stories.
Back in 2010, you could buy Bitcoin for less than a penny.
Seriously. Less than a penny.
Imagine buying a pizza with Bitcoin back then.
Oh man, I would really regret that now.
Big time.
So when did things start to take off?
Around 2013, Bitcoin crossed the $1,000 mark for the first time.
Okay.
And that's when those early adopters started seeing some major returns.
I bet they were pretty happy about that.
Then in 2017, we saw that huge surge.
The one where it almost hit 20,000, right?
You got it. But of course, that peak was followed by a market correction.
Yeah, that's the part that makes me nervous.
Makes sense. But then Bitcoin bounced back.
It did.
Yeah, and in 2021, it reached its all-time high of almost $69,000.
69,000.
It's that kind of explosive growth that gets people really excited.
So huge swings, early adopters, making bank at. It does sound a bit like a speculative frenzy.
I see where you're coming from.
But I'm guessing there's got to be more to it than just that.
You're right. There are real-world factors driving Bitcoin's growing adoption.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest is the increasing acceptance by both countries and major corporations.
So it's going mainstream.
Exactly.
Right, that makes sense.
And don't forget about its fixed supply.
Right.
It makes Bitcoin very appealing as a hedge against inflation.
Especially with all the economic uncertainty we've seen.
Exactly. So you have increasing demand from individuals, institutions, and maybe even countries, all converging on a limited supply.
Sounds like a recipe for prices to keep going up, potentially.
Okay, so before everyone runs out to buy Bitcoin, we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
What's that?
The risk.
Oh, yes.
It's volatile, right?
Absolutely. Bitcoin is known for its price swings.
That's what I've heard.
Prices can change dramatically in a very short period of time.
Not really a set it and forget it kind of investment then.
Not exactly. You have to be ready for a bit of a roller coaster ride.
So are there any other risks people should know about, like beyond the price going up and down?
Well, there's always the potential for regulatory changes.
Meaning?
Governments are still figuring out how to deal with cryptocurrencies.
Right.
New laws or restrictions could definitely impact Bitcoin's value.
Okay, and what about the tech side of things?
Yes. We can't forget about technological risks.
Hacking, security breaches, that kind of thing.
Exactly. No investment is completely risk-free.
Right. Okay, so say someone's interested in Bitcoin, but a little intimidated by it all.
I understand.
What advice would you give them? Like, where do they even start? And remember, this isn't financial advice. Of course. Well, one of the great things about Bitcoin is that you don't need to buy a whole coin to get started.
Really?
Yep. It's divisible into 100 million smaller units called Satoshis.
So even if a whole Bitcoin is expensive, you can still own a piece of it.
Exactly. So even with Bitcoin being around $30,000 right now, you can still get involved with a pretty small amount of money.
Interesting. So 0.001 Bitcoin for about $30.
Right around there.
It's like skipping a few fancy coffees.
Pretty much.
So, okay, someone wants to get their hands on some Bitcoin. Where do they actually go to buy it?
There are several reputable platforms out there specifically for buying and selling Bitcoin.
Any names come to mind?
Coinbase, Binance are a couple of the popular ones.
So start small, use a trustworthy platform that sounds doable.
Definitely.
But what about security? Like if someone starts buying more Bitcoin and it adds up, what then?
If you're holding a significant amount of Bitcoin, a hardware wallet might be a good idea.
Right.
It's a physical device that stores your Bitcoin offline.
So like a little safe for your Bitcoin.
You could say that makes it much more secure against hackers.
Okay, so to recap, start small, use a reputable platform, and think about a hardware wallet for larger amounts.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
Anything else our future Bitcoin investors should keep in mind?
The most important thing is to think long-term and be prepared for those price fluctuations.
So basically, don't panic if the price drops.
Exactly. Remember, Bitcoin's value has historically tended to rise over time.
So patience and a strong stomach are key.
It helps.
All right, so we've covered a lot here. Let's circle back to our original question.
Yep.
Could that tiny 0.001 Bitcoin, a $30 investment, really turn you into a millionaire?
Well, while it's not a guarantee, Bitcoin's growth has been pretty remarkable.
It has.
Early adopters have seen huge returns, and the things driving Bitcoin's adoption seem to be getting stronger.
So it's possible, but risky.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to do your own research and understand the risks.
Makes sense. Don't just jump in blindly.
Exactly. Make informed decisions.
That's great advice, but I think it's also important to consider the bigger picture.
What do you mean?
Like the impact Bitcoin could have on the world as a whole.
Right. That's a really important aspect.
So let's shift gears a bit and dive into those social and economic implications.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it. You know, it's pretty amazing how accessible Bitcoin has become.
Yeah, it really is.
Like we've been talking about, its potential to, generate wealth.
Right.
But you don't need a ton of money to get started.
That's a good point.
It wasn't always this easy, though.
Really?
Oh, no. Back in the early days, getting even a small amount of Bitcoin was all complicated process.
Huh.
But now with these user-friendly exchanges and the ability to just buy fractions of a Bitcoin,
right,
it's so much easier.
Like that 0.001 Bitcoin we keep talking about.
Exactly.
$30 the price of a couple of coffees.
Pretty much.
And with that, you're basically part of this whole experiment.
Right. Yeah, you're taking a bet on this whole idea of a decentralized digital currency.
One that operates completely outside of, governments and banks.
That's right. It's definitely a different way of thinking about money.
It is. But speaking of traditional systems, haven't we seen some pretty big players getting into Bitcoin lately?
Absolutely. We've seen major corporations like Tesla and MicroStrategy adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets.
Really?
And even some countries are exploring it.
Like El Salvador, right?
Exactly. They made Bitcoin legal tender back in 2021.
Wow, legal tender. That's a big step.
It is. So it seems like Bitcoin is gaining some serious traction.
It does, but what's driving this institutional interest? Is it just FOMO, or is there something more strategic going on?
I think it's a mix of things.
Okay.
Some companies see it as a hedge against inflation.
As we talked about.
Right. Others see it as a potential global payment system.
Interesting.
And of course, there's always that fear of being left behind.
If Bitcoin really does become the future of finance, It's like that saying the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Exactly. But even with all this institutional interest and growing acceptance, it's super important to remember that Bitcoin can be really volatile.
Right.
It's still a relatively young asset, and the price can swing up and down dramatically.
I can imagine those drops would be pretty nerve-wracking.
Especially for someone new to crypto.
So what's the best way to approach it?
I think a long-term perspective and a tolerance for risk are key.
You have to be in it for the long haul.
Don't let those short-term fluctuations shake your confidence.
If you believe in Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's get practical for a minute.
Right.
Someone decides to buy some Bitcoin. What does that process actually look like?
Well, the first step is choosing a cryptocurrency exchange.
Well, what?
An exchange. It's basically a platform where you can buy and sell Bitcoin.
Okay.
There are quite a few popular options out there, like Coinbase, Binance, Kraken.
So many choices. Are they all pretty much the same?
Not really. Each exchange has its own pros and cons.
Like what?
Well, some are more beginner-friendly,
Right.
while others are geared towards more experienced traders with all the bells and whistles.
Oh, got it.
You'll want to consider things like fees, security measures, the user experience,
Makes sense.
and also what types of cryptocurrencies they offer.
So do your research, basically.
Exactly. Compare different platforms before you commit.
Okay, so let's say you've picked an exchange.
Huh?
You've set up your account. What's next?
Next, you need to verify your identity.
Like with a bank?
Thanks for tuning into our channel Money Minded Online. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Share this episode with friends who are looking to make money online and join the community. Drop a comment below with your favorite tip or takeaway. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep hustling and making moves. See you in the next episode.